everyone. How are we doing? So, how are we doing, my soul mate community? Why soulmate? Because if you tune in to my channel, then that means we are a match, right? We are a vibrational match to one another. And we are meant, one way or another, to connect, to share perspectives, to observe one another, right? To grow from one another. So, I'm jumping on here live, unannounced. Why don't I notice that that's more fun? So, get your tea, get your drink, get comfy. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this cup here. It was gifted to me, Pisces. It reads backwards on here, but it's a Pisces. It was a gift, and we are in the Pisces month or time frame still, I believe. Yes, we are. And I'm a Pisces. Here it reads, creative, intuitive, loving, and trusting. Yes, I'll take that. So go ahead and get your drinks of choice, and we could dive into this live. The topic of this live, how letting go of a friendship, how letting go of a friend could essentially feel like a breakup. Like a breakup with your significant other, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, lover. The same. So, let's say you have a friend, a very close friend, who you cared and loved dearly. In fact, you considered them as family. And all of a sudden, you get disappointed, right? You get disappointed and you get hurt. And then now, you are in a literally breaking point, or you in a crossroads where you are now pondering about letting them go, breaking up the friendship. It is very, very painful. It can be very, very traumatizing. And if we don't know how to navigate or talk to ourselves and foster ourselves through this moment in time that you're experiencing this crossroads where you're actually now thinking about, it's more painful to be around them than to be away from them. And that's a painful situation. Now, when it comes to the moment of breaking up, of letting go, of letting just go of this thing that you're holding on to, okay, that feeling or that letting go, if that friendship is considered to be one where the other person's still trying, the other person doesn't want to let you go, for the most part too, the other person is considered to be a good person, but you have your personal reservations, you have your personal experiences with that person, right? But yet this relationship no longer feels fruitful. It no longer feels beneficial. But you also don't have all the I want to say, it's not like it's a very obvious toxic friendship, but yet, and they're trying, to be your friend, but something inside of you is like, I'm ready to cut the cord, right? But then you feel guilt. You feel guilt that if you were to cut the cord, if you were to break up, then that just means that you're not loving enough. Or that just means you're not compassionate enough. Or that you're giving up on the relationship. So that in and of itself becomes torture to a degree, painful, because you want to see yourself as good. And mind you, this is referencing those of you that are the ones that tend to always sacrifice yourself for your friend's emotional state or for your friend's convenience. You tend to be the one that is willing to sacrifice yourself so your friend can feel better, so your friend could feel good, so your friend won't feel uncomfortable, so your friend won't feel some type of negative way. So you tend to essentially sacrifice yourself. Withhold what you feel, withhold what you want to express, because you don't want to inconvenience, if you will, the other person. And there's a reason for that. Well, ultimately, when you're doing that, you're slowly but surely disconnecting from yourself. You're not feeling filled. You're not feeling fulfilled. And ultimately, that's going to turn into resentment. So I'm really talking to those individuals out there that are more so the friends that are more there for their friends, and they tend to, sacrifice themselves for the other, to convenience the other. This message is for you, okay? This is for you. And the inner child work that I'm going to invite you to do. So, going back to when you're being presented with the idea of breaking up with your friend, right? Letting go of this friendship. You tend to hold on still, because what does that then mean? Does that mean I'm going to walk away and give up on this friendship? Does that then mean I am not a good person, that I'm not trying to make this work? Does this mean that, the bad person is me? So you tend to hold on because you don't want to look like the bad guy. In fact, remember, you're trying to always look like the good guy. You're trying to qualify their approval. You're trying to get their acceptance. So you find yourself just not doing it, not doing what you feel called to do, whether if it is to pull away or to just let it go, let that friendship go. So I am going to actually give you a personal experience with me, because again, today it serves, and please get your tea so you can be watching this comfortably. Because I want you guys to see how it's benefited me letting go of a friendship that I thought I would never see myself letting go. Yeah. And because I consider myself a good person, a caring person, an aware person, I did fall under the trap of, if I do let them go, then I'm going to look like the bad guy, right? And that was very uncomfortable for me to come to that realization. It was very uncomfortable for me to feel that I was giving up on a friendship, that I wasn't trying to mend it or take all the steps needed, or I can do more. And let me tell you, I knew in my heart with this friendship several years ago that it was already going sideways. But let me tell you, I did do everything that I could to make it better, to talk about why I did that, why I felt this way, why I did X, Y, and Z. I got vulnerable. And at that time, vulnerability wasn't something that I had exercised enough. Vulnerability wasn't something I had exercised enough for me to feel super comfortable in. So it was monumental for me to already be vulnerable to the degree that I was then with this person. So I tried I tried, you know? And when I would feel like I was over the relationship, I would feel guilty and I would, entertain it. And then I would try to work on it. And long story short, or to get to the meat of this, I then get a message. I'm bombarded. And I was actually thinking that I was at a better place with this person. I was hit with a message that really rocked my core, that really shook my core. And it was intense. What this person said to me, I knew, but I didn't want to believe it. Hi, guys. Hi, Norma. Hi, Ociel, if you're still watching. Ociel. And Michelle, thank you. So I literally, going back to hearing what this woman said, there was this woman who mentioned something about this friend of mine who literally shook my foundation. And it hurt me because although I kind of had a feeling that what this lady was saying was true, it's like I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to be hopeful with the relationship. I wanted to be optimistic that the relationship was fruitful, was benefiting me. And when I heard this information, mind you, my dad was still alive. And I was conflicted. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know to pull away. I didn't know if that was my moment to let go. But yet I was hit with those thoughts of, am I not being loving enough? Am I not being understanding enough? Am I not trying enough? So what I'm trying to say here is, although inside of me, I felt that the best solution for me at this phase in my life, okay, because everything changes. I felt although I knew that the best solution to act on at this phase in my life was to let it go, to let that relationship go. However, I had all these fears of, again, how am I going to look? If I let go, if I give up on this relationship, then am I just going to give up on relationships when they get difficult? But the moment my father passed away, it gave me the clarity in the world. It gave me all the clarity in the world to realize and to understand, to prioritize what mattered the most. To prioritize, my life is short. Who do I want to spend it with? What kind of people do I want surrounding me? What kind of people do I want around me, especially in moments of distress, in moments of darkness, in moments of my weakness, of my weakest points? What kind of friendship, what kind of support system? And let me tell you, it hit me. It hit me, and I got clarity as to, I need to let go of this friend. I should have done this when I felt it. But it's okay. What's real right now is now. And right now, my best interest is that I need to let go of this friendship. And the moment that I did that, it was as if I lifted a weight off of me. That worry, that confusion, that pondering back and forth. Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? Am I good? Am I being good? It just lifted. So, when I did this, okay, people say, but you gave up, Josie. You gave up. You could have maybe been more vulnerable. For those that are self-aware, right? Maybe saying that. Maybe. But at that time of my life, just a year ago, or not a year ago, last year in July, last year of July, to July of 2020, I needed to take this step. For me, for Josie, from my space of awareness, from my level of frequency of vibration that I'm in, I needed, the next step for me was to let go of this relationship. Why? Why did I need to let go instead of focusing on mending it? Because I had been focusing on mending it, and I still was feeling I wasn't being understood, heard, or even received or accepted. Right? So, when I did let it go, I felt freer. I felt like this worry of back and forth, the vortex of worry that I was creating was lifted. But most importantly, whenever, months later, when my current relationships that I felt safe in, the relationships that I had built a safe container in, when those relationships were beginning to be threatened, when those relationships that I deemed as safe were being rocked, were being, I guess the word is threatened, I knew immediately that what I needed to do was to take my vulnerability to the next level, was to get super vulnerable ASAP. And I knew I had to be more aggressive about it in a loving way, meaning I had to be, in fact, I knew that I wanted to try. I knew that I wanted to try with these friends that I felt I was being tested. And I knew that the way to restore and build a safe space, a safe container for these bonds, for these friendships, for these connections, I knew it required vulnerability. That is the only way. The only way, even if it makes other people uncomfortable, it is the only way that they could understand you and why you feel the way that you do. And doing that, you then give them the opportunity to put their weapons down. The weapons that they're now pointing at you because they now see you as a threat. By you being vulnerable, you now give them the opportunity to put the weapon down and to not begin the war against you. Because that's what happens. Whenever we get threatened, whenever we get challenged by a friend, a family member, someone we love in our hearts, whenever we are faced with pain, betrayal of some sort, the thing that our coping mechanism kicks in, and we want to pull out the weapons, and now there's a war. We've now deemed that person to be your enemy, and now we want to create a war. So, I knew I don't want to create a war. How can I make this person drop their weapons, so to speak? Vulnerability. Be vulnerable. What you're feeling. But Josie, I hold the risk of them rejecting me. Yes, you do. But you also hold the risk of losing solid support systems. So it begins with you being courageous to speak. Now, when I did that, see, let me explain. When I let go, when I decided to let go of this friendship that I thought I would never let go, it equally freed me and gave me and opened a door of wisdom where I then knew I wanted to nurture and foster and try harder with building a safe container with my friends and the bond that I have with them. I knew that then required me to be more proactive in doing that. So, when my supportive friendships were being threatened, I chose to step up, to get into a more real and vulnerable, to take my vulnerability to the next level. And when I did that, my God, there was room for restoration. There was room for understanding. There was room for both parties to feel understood. In fact, paradoxically, one may say, but you closed your heart when you let go of that friend. No, I didn't. In fact, it broke me more open, because I knew that if this was to happen with another friend who I deemed to be safe, who I deemed that friendship to be supportive, that required me to dive deeper, that would require me to get more vulnerable. And indeed was the ingredients for me to get to the woman that I am today in terms of friendship. There's more, obviously, to heal, and there's layers. But the moral of the story here, there's two things I want to emphasize on. Two. Okay? First, if you are that friend, if you are that person that sacrifices you for the other to feel comfortable, for the other to feel heard, for the other to feel understood and supported, and you're now at a place where you're questioning that friendship. First thing, have you told them how you feel? Have you became vulnerable? Did you share the way that you feel first? And if you did, if you shared how you feel, if you got vulnerable and exposed yourself, but yet didn't receive the support system that you expected, and haven't been, and you've only been that friend that supports her, but you don't feel supported, revisit that. Revisit that. Because if you were to choose to let it go, you'd be surprised what then you will realize thereafter, and what you will open yourself to, what kind of awareness you'll open yourself to. So there's steps of unfolding. We can't bypass, especially as spiritual people or aware people, we want to bypass and get to the good. There's steps to get there. And those steps may not seem loving, may seem like you're giving up on someone, but sometimes that's what you need to let it go, so you could value and understand something you're not understanding, or that you need to repair yourself furthermore and others, and the relationship dynamic around you. Second thing that the message that I want to give here is, we sometimes in romantic relationships and or friendships, we are ready to cut the cord. We are ready. But we don't, because we're afraid of hurting them. We don't because we're afraid of how we're going to look in the eyes of another, in the eyes of my friends, in the eyes of my family. I'm going to look like the bad guy if I cut the cord of what is perceived to be a perfect relationship, or what's perceived to be a healthy relationship, marriage, relationship, whatever. So we stay because we want to keep the peace. We stay because we want to make everyone else happy. At whose expense? At your expense. And we know that, but yet it's difficult to act on letting them go, because we're more afraid of how we're going to be received by others if we do it. So I'm going to repeat that. We get more afraid of how we're going to be received by others, by our family members, by our children. So we stay because we don't want to look like the bad guy. We don't want to feel like we were the ones that ruined it or walked away and didn't try. So we end up sacrificing ourselves. And we end up becoming more bitter, more sad, more depressed. And we create more of this resentment and you start losing life. You feel like you're slowly just losing yourself. So I invite you to know that I sympathize for you, that it is not as easy to just walk away. I get it. I get it that you, in fact, the reason why it's not easy for you to just walk away from something that everyone is telling you that it's good for you, and you should stay, or you don't want to feel like you're giving up, is because that's actually a trauma response. You're actually unable to honor your own wishes, what you really feel and what you want to do, because if you do, then that means you're going to lose love and acceptance. So it really boils down to, if you take it down to the root, that when you were little, you were treated like that. Your parents or your authority figures or whoever took care of you made you feel like they were going to take their love away if you weren't good, if you didn't do what they said, if you didn't do what was good. They made you feel that they would take their love away. And that was so painful when you were little that you don't want to repeat that again. So you're essentially stuck in this trauma, and the way you're responding, meaning sacrificing yourself to keep the other happy or others happy, is really a trauma response. So I hear you and I sympathize for you. But today, considering today, is an opportunity for inner child work. Go in, dive in, and ask yourself questions. If you resonate with this, if you are that person that has felt a friendship is no longer fruitful and it's time to let it go, but you don't know how to, or you're afraid, because you don't want to feel or look like the bad guy, or a relationship is over, but you don't want to look like the bad guy, like the one that cut the cord, left, you weren't considerate. Ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions. When in my past relationships was I in the same predicament? How many times have I been in the same problem? First question. How many times have I created this same situation? And take it back to all the relationships, right? And then go back to your childhood and say, when was the very first time that I learned, that I witnessed through consequence, that doing something that is not approved carries a huge consequence, or not pleasing another, not pleasing your family, not pleasing your friend is a huge consequence? Ask yourself those questions. And I also went into triggers. That if you are in a happy place, right, and all of a sudden, or you're good, but all of a sudden you get hijacked and you're feeling irritated, annoyed, and it's like a quick thing, like almost like you can't notice that happened. I invite you to pause and say, what was I thinking prior to this shift of mood? What was I thinking? Who was I talking to? What did I hear? What did someone say? Who called me? Ask, what happened that put me in this negative, uncomfortable state, emotional state? First question. Second question, when you want to learn or how to uncover triggers, is, when was the second to the last time I felt like this? When did this happen to me before? How often does this happen? Does it happen when I'm doing this? Does it happen when I'm talking to this? What got me, how many times? When was the second to the last time? Third to the last time? And then say, when I was little, who, once you realize that it took that comment to rob you from your peace of mind, study that comment. Study who in my childhood said X, Y, and Z and hurt me, right? Who in my childhood yelled at me like the way that this person yelled at me and hurt my feelings? I invite you to do that. Ask yourself those questions, because the more you become self-aware of the problem, and let me tell you, some people might say, but what is that going to do? Okay, if I then correlate it to my childhood and I realize that my dad, so to speak, for example, is the one that used to verbally abuse me. So when my significant other, right, my husband or boyfriend abuses me verbally, I get triggered. Okay, but if I then know that it was due to my dad, because my dad used to do that, how is that going to change anything? Oh, that's already shifting so much inside of you. You just simply becoming aware of where it originated. There is already this sense of, oh, this person tends to take my power because it's a trauma. So by you understanding that, it's more empowering. And when you understand that, oh, it's because of my childhood, you are now observing the very thing that has you stuck in a pattern. And when the observer, you are the observer, is now able to look at the experience of what's at the pattern that's keeping you stuck, that belief system, that core belief system that's keeping you stuck, then you could redefine it. But most importantly, give it what it needs. Give you what you need, what you never got back then. Give that crying child, malnurtured child, what you needed. And then redefine it. Give it a new definition. But yes, so today's live, cheers, was in regards to inviting you to do inner child work, to invite you to correlate what is it that triggers you today, and how you can make sense of it by going into your childhood. And also for me to, through my own personal experience, share and connect with those of you out there that are ready to let things go, to let people go, but are afraid to let them go, are afraid to take that step because that step doesn't represent love, or doesn't represent support, or doesn't represent whatever you've deemed it to represent if you stay there. Because sometimes that step is maybe what you need. Maybe that step is what you need for you to get the clarity that you were not getting when you were still in that place. And just it requires you to create room by taking that step, letting go, and now you're creating room for awareness, for things to make sense. Yes, inner child work, my people. Let's do it. And I'm very, very interested to know if someone out there shares the same struggle as I did, of knowing that a friendship was already over, or it wasn't fruitful and it seemed to be a one-way street, but you were too afraid to just let it go. I'm very curious. I want to know. Please share. You can message me, private message me, if you're embarrassed to have others know your personal intimacy or life. Email me, or you can email me, and I'll put my email below. But private message me on here, and maybe I can, I could give you a free 30-minute session to help you understand what I am able to see in things, how I'm able to see patterns and correlate them effortlessly, actually. So go on, do inner child work, and mend and heal with all the love and full acceptance. Josie.